and I've renamed this as the first sheet. Now let's say I want to add one more sheet in my workbook. We all know that we can simply click on this plus icon and this is going to insert a new sheet for me. Now I can again rename this to whatever I want. So in case I want to rename this as second sheet, I can do that. So what you can consider is that you can take that example that the workbook is like a notebook and each sheet or each worksheet is like the multiple pages that you have inside a notebook. Okay, and you can work inside each sheet independently. So the data which I'm going to enter here is not going to affect the data that is already present in the second sheet. Now in this way we can go on adding multiple more sheets in a particular workbook. Now let's say I want to delete a sheet. Let's say I created the sheet by mistake. I think that this is no longer needed. So how to delete a sheet? I can just hover on this tab, right click, and here we have this option which says delete. And if I click on this, that sheet gets deleted. Okay. So now if I want to, let's say, rearrange the positioning of sheets, like here I have first sheet, second sheet and sheet 4. Let's say I want the sheet 4 to be the first sheet of this particular workbook. So what I can do is I can simply drag this and put it before my first sheet tab, and here you can see that now sheet 4 is the first worksheet of this particular workbook. I can also rename the sheets if I right click and click on this rename option. So I can also rename the sheets from here as well. Okay. Now there are some other options as well. Here, for example, I want to change the tab color of this sheet. Okay. So this is a tab, right? So if I click on a particular tab, that sheet gets activated. So currently I am working on the first sheet and this tells me that now the first sheet is active. Okay, I am working on this first sheet. Now if I want to go back to sheet 4, I need to click on this particular tab. So these are the tabs which indicate on which current worksheet I am working on. So let's say I want to change. Here we have this option that says tab color and you can give whatever color you want. Okay, so then your tab is going to get colored with that color. So as you can see, this color has changed. Let's say I want to color this. So once I hover on some other tab, you can see that this is the color that this tab is having right now. Okay. So let's say I want to change the tab color of this particular tab to red. Once I click on some other tab, you can see that the tab color of this sheet has changed to red. Okay. Now why do we need multiple sheets? Let me give you an example. For example, we are storing the marks of different section of students. Okay, so in class, for example, for a particular grade, let's say grade 10 or class 10, we have three sections and we want to store the marks attained by the students in each particular section. So what I can do is, let's say this workbook is used for storing the marks of the students of class 10 and I want them to be separated, like each section student should be, the data should be entered into a particular sheet. So very efficiently what I can do is I can rename this sheet to, let's say, section A or just simply A. This can be section B, and in this way I can efficiently store the marks of the students of each individual section without affecting the marks of the students of the other section. So this is how having multiple worksheets in a single workbook helps. Now let's come back to our Excel sheet and let's say we have some data which I want to enter. Let's say I have the employee name and I have the salary. So here I'm going to write employee name, which is going to be the title for this particular column. And here I want one more column which is going to be employee salary. Now if you clearly see that we are not getting the entire title of this particular column in this column width. So what I can do is either I can increase the column width from here, like if I take my cursor on the right border of this particular column, you can see the cursor is changing, right? So what I can simply do is I can click and drag here, and in this case it's going to increase the column width. Okay, so now I can actually put the second column name, which is going to be salary. And now let's say I enter the details. So here we have, let's say, 4 employees And let me enter the salary as well. So I'm just putting some random salary. Random salary. Now let's say that sometimes what happens, like you can see we have some white space on the right side of the name of this particular column, and I don't want that. So often if we manually try to adjust the width of a column, this problem occurs. So what I can simply do is, again I'm going to hover my cursor over this particular line, and if I now double click, it's going to automatically adjust the column width to contain the entire name of this particular column. So instead of just manually dragging like this, what we can just do is we can just hover our mouse over this particular line here, and I'm just going to double click, and then it's automatically going to adjust the column width. Now here I have the employee details or records for four particular employees. Okay. Now let's say I want to enter one more record, but I don't want to enter it at the bottom of the list. I want that record to be inserted between Pawan and Ramesh. So how to insert a row between already two existing rows? What I can simply do is I will go to the fourth row, so where it's written fourth, which indicates the fourth row. You can see the entire row is getting selected. I'm going to take my cursor over there, right click, and here we get one option which says insert, and it's going to simply insert one blank row above the earlier the row which was the fourth row is now the fifth row, and it has simply inserted one blank row above this. So now I can very easily insert the details of another employee. Let's say similarly, I want to add one more column. Let's say before the employee name column, I want one more column which is going to be the HRM ID of each particular employee. Okay. So what I can again do is I am going to hover my cursor on this where it is written 8. So it's going to highlight the entire column, and I'm going to just right click, and here we again get this option insert, and it's simply going to insert one blank column before this employee name column, and I can just give the title here again, employee ID or HRM ID, and I can just simply put the ID. So I'm just going to randomly put some ID here. Again, let's say I want to increase or decrease the column width. We can again do what? We can just take the cursor and hover on this line which is right below where it is written 1, and then I can just click and drag. So in this way I can change the width of the particular row. Okay. So again, but if I want it to take the default or the optimum width, I can again just take my cursor over here and double click, and then it's going to adjust based on the optimum space that this particular row requires. Now it's very easy to delete records from this particular worksheet as well. Okay. So let's say I want to delete the record of the employee Ramesh. So first I'm going to select that particular row, and again
Hello, Moto.
if I just right click, here we get the option. Let's say I don't want the column salary. What I can simply do is I am going to hover the mouse right. What I can simply do is I am going to hover the mouse right above this column, and in this way that column gets out, right above this column, and in this way that column gets out. The bottom right corner we have a slice icon. It's going to zoom in the worksheet, and now you can just see a certain part of the worksheet while the rest is not going to be visible in this particular viewport. To view the rest of the data that is not visible right now, you can use the scroll bars. Now, if I again want to zoom out so that I can view the rest of the data as well, what I can simply do is I can either click on this minus sign, it's going to zoom out for me, or I can also use the slider and slide it towards the left. Okay, so it's going to zoom out, and if I slide it towards the right, that's how we can hide rows, columns, and sheets. Okay, now hiding is a common practice when you don't want to display a certain information or a certain sheet in a particular workbook to some user. For example, in businesses, what happens that normally just the summary of the entire data is shown to the other person, and you might want some other details and other metadata to be hidden from a particular person. In this case, hiding of sheets or hiding of rows and columns is very popular. So we are going to see how we can do that. So let's say here I have another column which is bonus, so which basically is amount of the performance bonus each employee has got. So I'm just going to enter some data here. So this is the performance bonus column. Okay, now let's say I don't want everybody to be able to see this bonus column and I want this column to be hidden. Okay, so what I can simply do is I can again take my mouse over the CF column. तेरे बिना अधूरा है, धागों से बांधा एहसास दिल के रिश्तों को रिश्ता